Everybody, thanks so much for listening to Fire, Breathe, and Rob. If you are listening to us for the first time, please like, subscribe, and share, whether it's on YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you are listening to this on the radio, obviously you can't like, subscribe, or share, but you can tell your friends and family, and we hope you do. We have an amazing guest on here, and she is from the Adventures of Carly. This is Carly. You may have saw her write in CNN. You may have saw her write in Insider. She's been on many different media platforms. She's going to tell us a little more about herself, rather, and about Disney, Universal, and Orlando in general. Carly, first of all, thanks so much for taking time out of your busy schedule for coming on here. We're really appreciate it. We're happy that you're feeling better also, which is the most positive thing.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to do my favorite thing, which is talk about theme parks.
Okay. So first, can you tell the viewers a little bit about you and how you started to love theme parks in general?
Right. Yeah. So I grew up in New Jersey, specifically the Jersey Shore. And it was kind of just the thing that everyone did is on school breaks, you go to Disney. That was it. Disney World usually because we're on the East Coast. And I'm very lucky that I was born to parents who are way more experiences over things. So we've been kind of annual pass holders at Disney World since the early 90s. And my first visit was in the 80s, when I was just a very small child. So I was kind of born into a theme park family. And then I've just carried that kind of tradition on.
Now, did you ever do a CP or no?
No.
Okay.
Honestly, I never had the desire to do the college program or work for Disney because I just like the magic all around it, but not necessarily, I don't want to get into the underbelly.
So you talked about your love for Orlando theme parks. Do you remember the first time you went? I know you said you went when you were a child, so sometimes we remember those memories, sometimes we don't. But talk about if you can remember the first time you went to, whether it was Disney or Universal or SeaWorld, wherever you want to talk about in general, in those first magical moments that appeared in your mind and still appear.
Yeah. I don't remember my first time because I was a baby,
Right.
But one of my first earliest memories that I have as a child at Disney World specifically, we were at Magic Kingdom and we were exiting Splash Mountain and Demi Moore was getting on the boat. And of course she had the VIP guide that was taking her right on through the exit. And that is honestly one of my first memories that I have as a kid being in the parks. And it's a really cool one too.
Right. I've saw some football players, a very famous women's basketball player there. I take that back. I did see John Stamos in Hollywood Studios, and he's always in Hollywood Studios or in Disney in general. If you're an annual pass holder, you'll probably see, if you go quite often, John Stamos sometime in your life.
Oh, he's the fixture. Yeah, I was at the Cirque du Soleil premiere of the new show Drawn to Life, and he was one of the special guests, and he came out and gave the opening speech, and it was really special. And he had you could tell he's a super fan, which is really nice. He's not just doing it as a PR stunt. He loves Disney parks. And
he does have the Disneyland sign in his backyard, his house. He bought it. So,
that's a real deal. Yeah.
If you have the first Disneyland sign in your backyard, then you're a serious, legit fan.
Right. 100%. And I think also Drew Carey has some vintage ride vehicle from Disneyland. Oh. I think it might be one of the original Mr. Toad vehicles. I'm not sure, but he bought something too. That's a really cool collector's piece.
Right. So let's talk about the Adventures of Carly. Talk about that. How did that come about? And just talk about it in general.
Right. Yeah. I've been writing my whole life. Always was an avid reader. Grew up on Goosebumps, so it's probably R.L. Stine to blame. But always loved writing, and I've been a professional writer for over a decade. And then, I just kind of pieced the puzzles together of, hey, I know so much about theme parks, and I'm seeing other people writing about it. And I was like, I'm there every single month. I have been following just the whole world and diving into the world since the late 80s. I was like, I could do this. I should write about theme parks. And I just kind of manifested it, and it's been going really well. And I have the opportunity to write for so many really cool outlets. And it's just fun to be able to share something that I'm so passionate about, and people love reading about it.
Can you give the viewers an update about what's going on in the parks as far as, is there more people now compared? There is the reservation system, and there's all these nits and crannies now when you go to Disney. So to form it simply, instead of me rambling, can you just talk about, since Disney's reopened, how the reservation system has played into this, and how, the mask issue is, social distancing, what's going on there right now?
Right. Yes. I'm there about once every month covering the parks for story. So I'm there a lot. I'll be there in the next few days. It's definitely a different experience. And I feel like you have to go into it with the mental understanding that maybe the Disney that you knew before all of COVID and everything, it's just not the same. There is a reservation system. So you have to commit in advance to the park that you'll be visiting first on that day. And then you can't park hop even with an annual pass or a park hopper pass till the afternoon. So that's a big thing for people to kind of take into consideration and kind of changes people's plans. I mean, before I was always team park hopper. I mean, I have an annual pass, so that point is mute for me. But for people visiting, I think you can get away with doing a park a day now instead of the way vacations were. Also, you have the Disney Genie system, which is their new souped up version of Fast Pass. And it's whether you love it or hate it, you're going to have to incorporate that into your vacation planning, which is a lot, and it's hard for people to wrap their heads around. And, I wrote a guide to Disney Genie for Parents Magazine, and it's so funny because I'll still look at my own guide that I wrote if people are asking me questions, because it's a lot to, get used to, especially after you were used to the old system.
So when you first went back to Disney, how was it? Can you talk about that first experience back? I know it was a little while ago, but
no, I remember it. It's seared in my mind because, you at that time you had to wear a mask at all times, indoors, outdoors, and even walking. And as you know, it gets so hot in Florida almost 90% of the year. And I'm I wear the mask. You couldn't even take a sip of water without them kind of coming upon you to tell you, which I get it because there's rules and you have to follow them. But it was a little, I will say it was tough. I spent a lot of, in those early days, not as much park time and more maybe pool time at the resorts. A lot of, to combat kind of walking around a lot in the mask, I always would make a lunch and dinner reservation just so you would have that time sitting down out of the heat and be able to kind of reconvene, because it's really hard to walk. You do 12 hours a day around the parks. It is rough to do it in a mask in the heat. And it was hard, so you don't have to wear a mask outside anymore. So they're just indoors. So that is definitely a big plus now.
For the most part, we're almost, knock on wood, we pray that we're almost out of this COVID phase and we're slowly, fully getting back to normal at the parks. You agree with that?
Yeah, you could feel it. I mean, you can't run up and hug characters like you used to, which I think is a big thing. I mean, I don't know how you explain to a child that's like 3 and running up to a character, hey, don't hug them. So that is definitely something a parent has to, manage expectations with. But otherwise, it feels like we're getting back to normal. More and more restaurants that have been shut down this whole entire time have finally reopened, like Flying Fish, a favorite at the boardwalk, just reopened last week. So we're getting back to, kind of normal.
Are the meet and greets open? I know you said kids can't go up to the characters. Are they getting close to being open? What's your
word? There's some, like Olaf just started doing a meet and greet again at Disney
Studios.
Yeah, Mickey is at Epcot, right near the theater where Captain EO was. So it's coming back. It's definitely coming back.
Let's talk about Universal, and then I'll go back to Disney because I want to get this quick segment on Universal. So, I was a person, and I don't know how old you are, but I'm 32. And I was a huge Universal guy when I was younger. I used to go back to, and depending on when you started going to Universal, is if you'll know these things, like King Kong, Jaws, Back to the Future, Earthquake, Beetlejuice, T2. And I know a lot of those shows were kind of outdated. Some of them were classics. I had a fight with someone on here that was a huge Universal reporter and said, they should have kept a lot of those shows because there was that nostalgic. Disney has those attractions with the nostalgia. Small World, Pirates of the Caribbean, Peter Pan's Flight. I mean, Space Mountain. The list goes on and on. Mostly they're in, obviously, Magic Kingdom because that's the oldest park at Disney World. But I don't really see that at Universal. Do you agree with that? That Universal doesn't really have that
Right.
nostalgic
Yeah. So
ride or show like Disney? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
exactly. Yeah. I mean, I've been going to Universal since it opened in the early
Oh,
90s.
okay.
I was AP there. Yeah. So, I mean, all the things that you mentioned kind of hit home for me. You know, I loved Alfred Hitchcock. I love walking to
Yes.
the Wall Museum. I mean, there was so many, just memories that I have still, like Earthquake will always stay with me, Confrontation. Those were my favorite parts about it. But Universal is at a loss to Disney in the sense that a lot of those, like Space Mountain, is timeless. A lot of the Universal attractions are reliant on movies, the latest technology in movies. So stuff could be said if they didn't update, they would also get a lot of, flag for it. ET Adventure is still one of my favorite rides at any amusement park, and fingers crossed that they don't change it because that is timeless nostalgia. I ride it, every single month.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite attractions. So I'm glad that's still there, but it's just they're just kind of adapting.
Well, there's just too many screen rides. I think it was a total disaster. And I know a lot of people hate this ride, the Fast and Furious ride, where Earthquake used to be, disaster, whichever one you want to go
Right.
by. I mean, it's just totally a disaster, no pun intended, of how they made that ride. It just seems there's so many screen rides at Universal. There's Transformers, Jimmy Fallon. There is Fast and Furious. The Simpsons is a screen ride.
Right.
In that park, it's fully screen ride, Minions. I know Shrek just left, and they're supposed to be probably putting a Minions thing in there too. I mean, it's just, I don't know. It just seems like everything is out of place to when they, open the park, everything kind of fit. And maybe it's just being that nostalgic person, but it seems like when they opened, everything kind of fit in those sections. And now it's like they just throw things wherever they want.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a huge screen ride person, to be honest with you. I will say Universal Studios Hollywood, which I am at often, they put in a Secret Life of Pets ride, and it is like a classic dark attraction. It is so well done. It has been one of my favorite rides of recent times, and if not one of my favorite rides of any North American theme park. It is so well done, and if we could bring something like that to Universal Studios Florida, that would be, I feel like, a game changer.
So you are going down there tomorrow to specifically cover Mardi Gras. I haven't been to Mardi Gras in such a long time, but obviously when we think of Mardi Gras, we think of the beads, the parades. We also think of the food, of course, and the concerts at Universal, which used to be really spectacular. I don't know who they have.
Again, Diana Ross is doing this year, so that's huge.
So they used to have quite a few people. I think I saw one time Neo was there, which was really good. But besides that, I know you said Diana Ross. Who else is going to be there? Do you know?
There's really good people this year. I think there's Mark McGrath. They have Gavin DeGraw. There's a really, really nice mix of acts this year. So it has actually become, Mardi Gras Universal has become one of my favorite festivals in all of the country and all the theme park festivals. It is really well done. It encapsulates the kind of magic of Mardi Gras, but obviously in a family-friendly atmosphere. The food component, last year, they stepped up big time. They have the Flavors of Carnival, which is all different, foods from Carnival celebrations across the world. And the food at the festival last year was spectacular. So I'm expecting this year that is going to be just as awesome. Right.
Is there anything else you're really excited to see throughout this besides the food, the musical acts, and also the parade?
Yeah, so the tribute store, of course, they have been killing it in the props and set department with that. And then float riding is back this year. So your guests are allowed to ride on a float. So I'm actually registered to do that in a couple of weeks. So.
Oh, that's awesome. Did they tell you in advance what float you're going to ride on, or is it just kind of?
They don't. No. You have to register in advance online. I believe it closed within like an hour of the link going up because people missed it last year, and it's a sense of normalcy back. And then you arrive, I think, about 2 hours before the parade, and then you're assigned your float, and you throw out the beads.
Awesome. That's so cool. I didn't know that was going on. Like, I haven't been to Universal since 2011, so it's always great to hear all these tidbits of information of the new things there, because I definitely want to go back. Let's talk about Shrek shutting down. I know, the talk about Shrek shutting down was that you can see that movie on YouTube, you can see that in the
Yeah.
on TV, on Netflix, on the bonus features, all this stuff. So that shut down. Thankfully, from what I'm told, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, Carly, is they are still keeping the Donkey and Shrek live actors
Yeah.
out. Okay, good.
So that's the word on the street. I mean, at any time that
Yeah.
could change, of course. But I feel like that in that little nook, the way it's kind of at a corner around the side, I feel like that works in that section, and I don't really see a need to get rid of that.
What are you hearing for that area? Do you think
So
pets could go in there, or something else, or minions, or what?
pets would be my dream to go in there. But I don't know if you saw the photos, the construction walls that went up once they closed Shrek are all minions doing construction
Yeah.
work. So that's what we're assuming. But then at the same time, I mean, it is right across from Minions. Maybe they're just doing that to play with us. Maybe they just did that because it's a cute way to, garnish construction walls. I would love a Secret Life of Pets. That park, I think, needs a good family-friendly dark ride style attraction. And that's, all ages can go on it and enjoy it. Little kids, and it's not screens. So
I know you're a huge roller coaster person, but do you think Universal has a problem that there's too many roller coasters in the park, and there's not a lot of those family-friendly rides like you stated?
right. I mean, I don't think it's a problem. I think it's just a different market. But at the same time, I think there's plenty to do with small children. I mean, obviously, it's not the number of attractions that are at a Walt Disney World park, but there's plenty to do with kids that they're targeting towards kids. I mean, look at Cabana Bay. The pool that they designed there is literally for children with the lazy river and such. So I think there's enough for kids to do. But I mean, I love the roller coasters. Velocicoaster, their latest one, is one of my favorites already.
So, as you know, we talked about Mardi Gras. You just stated about Velocicoaster, which opened up a couple months back. Huge draw. Obviously, something's going to be happening near Shrek, probably Minions, if we want to just be truthful with each other.
Right, exactly.
Besides that, do you see anything else as far as new things coming to Universal? Because Barney closed in the Fun Zone area. We also saw Fear Factor close, and I want to bring this up to you. Fear Factor, I've heard that they're going to do something with virtual reality with Harry Potter too. I want you to clarify if you believe that or if you heard that. And the second thing, what is going to happen with this Barney area, which, it's a pretty decent sized space that they could do something fairly, good with.
Right. So they put in the DreamWorks character destination over there where Barney closed. And I have to say, it is so well done. I don't know, you haven't been, but it's basically like an indoor dance party, kind of reminiscent of when they would do Club Disney next to Rock and Roller Coaster. So they have a stage with dancers, characters come out, and it's a really cool opportunity to kind of go inside in the air conditioning. You could relax, you could dance if you want, you can get selfies with, glitter troll, the whole 9 yards. So I love what they did with that space for now. And then I'm excited to see, what will happen next. And then with Fear Factor Live, I mean, the Harry Potter virtual reality thing to me just seems, I don't know. I don't want to believe that because I just, I don't know. That seems kind of off. I don't know. I don't think that'll happen there. But I mean, crazier things have happened. So
this is my problem with Universal is that, they went too much into Harry Potter. I know it's a huge money make. I understand that. But if they put another Harry Potter attraction where the Wild Wild West stunt show was, and then after that, Fear Factor, I love the Wild Wild West stunt show. I thought that was a really well done show. But the Fear Factor Live, I was never a fan of that. I thought that was just a waste of space. And so if they do put Harry Potter there, I think they're starting to go a little overboard on one thing. It's a little bit too much. It's almost like the problem I have with Hollywood studios, where like I said, I was a huge Michael Eisner fan. I love this park because it was all about movies, the great movie ride, which was a travesty that they got rid of that. I think that was kind of disgraceful in my mind. Amazing ride. You talk about nostalgia with the park. That should have stayed there. Regardless of that, we have Star Wars and Toy Story, and that's basically it with a bunch of other attractions shoved around Hollywood studios. And I think they've ruined the park like that, where they should have just built another park, which they got plenty of room, Disney does, and just make it Star Wars and Toy Story or some superhero park or something.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely feel the disconnect. What you know are kind of explaining. You know, you go on Rock and Roller Coaster, and then a few minute walk, and you're in Galaxy's Edge, and it's definitely, you know, it's different. I'm not a crazy Star Wars person, but I do love Galaxy's Edge. It's really well done, and I can appreciate it. And that kind of goes for Harry Potter too. I read the books, you know, when they came out way back when, but I'm not a crazy Harry Potter person. So I love the land and I can appreciate it for what it's worth. But as far as having like an emotional attachment, you know, that's not there for me.
Last question on Universal is that, you know, Monsters Cafe, which is, we talk about the nostalgia in Universal, it's been there, you know, not since the beginning, but since the early 2000s.
Right.
And a lot of people love it and go there and take pictures in front of it in general. There's talk that that might be on its way out. Have you heard that?
I have, yeah. I don't know. I feel like that would be really upsetting because that is kind of one of those last little gems, relics of the past. Like you said, it's not from when it opened in the 90s, but it is from the early 2000s. And so you have that classic movie monster thing that you don't really get as much in the park anymore. And I'm sure you saw, but for Mardi Gras, they just put in where the mummy is being renovated right now. In the store there, they turned that into a classic monsters shop. So I see that's what makes me kind of think maybe they're not going to, you know, put the nail in the coffin of that.
Well, I was told I was going to have a Monsters Land in the new park.
Epic Universe. Yeah.
Right.
That would be, yeah, that's a rumor. I would love that. I think that is a really good throwback and kind of ties everything together.
I think Disney's starting to lose some ground on Universal. I think the Epic Universe could put the nail in the coffin for Disney. Disney is kicking themselves in the butt. They shut down the annual passes. The Disney Genie, I don't know anybody that really likes it. I think people hate it. I've heard people that the ride got knocked out for the day or for a couple hours and they lost their time, no refunds, no time back on the ride. People are pissed that Disney is screwing the regular working people, the regular middle class people that may go once, twice, maybe 3 times a year. They're screwing the annual pass holders too, and with the reservation system, and also, you know, getting rid of the fast pass and stuff. And it's just to cater to the rich and the elite in the country. And my thing is, and this is to go into the question is, do you feel like Universal is going to overtake Disney when the new park opens? And they're really going to put the crush on Disney to say, you people better step up, or we're going to knock you right out.
Yeah, I feel like that pressure has already been on for a while. A lot of, you know, annual pass holders, Disney World diehards have become a little bit disillusioned in this time just because of everything that's been going on. And you kind of feel like your allegiance to them has been just for nothing. Like you said, with the annual pass holder program going away, there's a lot of factors. So I've seen a lot of people that have at least started to dip their toe into Universal that maybe didn't go before. And I got an annual pass again to Universal Orlando before COVID. So I'm kind of I'm not really a part of that group, but there are a lot of people that, you know, let their Walt Disney World annual pass go amidst all of this before obviously you couldn't be able to get them again, and have switched over to Universal. And they have been, I will say, Universal has been smashing it with their annual pass holders, making them feel appreciated. And that's what people want, you know. And it's easy to say, hey, I don't feel like Disney World, you know, I understand a lot of people like this. I don't feel like Disney World cares about its regular clientele. And I understand why people feel like that. And it's expensive too. You know, I still have my annual pass, obviously, because I'm there covering things, but I could see why you wouldn't want to spend over $1,000 and have to deal with a, you know, reservation system. And I will say Disney World is a lot better and easier to make reservations in Disneyland, because I also have a Disneyland annual. And there was about 2 months when I couldn't get in, and I couldn't get in there because there just wasn't reservations for annual pass holders. So that is definitely a major problem at Disneyland. Is before it was a locals park, and it's kind of not that anymore.